Hey everybody, hope everyone's having a good day out there. So, a lot has been happening around the recently announced Ghost of Yotei, and I wanted to give my thoughts on the trailer and on the situation surrounding it. I'm not happy at all with the state of things at the moment. It's very disheartening to not be able to have a big game announcement without toxic arguments and controversy breaking out in such a needless manner. The trailer itself has such an overwhelmingly positive ratio, showing that the vast majority of people seem to be on board with this. And it's no wonder, because it does look good and there are no red flags on the actual trailer itself. But then shit starts to hit the fan. The actress is revealed to be Erika Ishii, and as some people started to check her out on X, they came to realize that she had gone on a preemptive blocking rampage, prompting people to look her up even harder because, well, duh, that's obviously not normal behavior. And then on another side, we have people with opinions similar to my initial thoughts actually, getting dragged on social media, being called sexist simply for expressing our love for Jin Sakai and our disappointment that we're not going to see his story be completed, despite still being open-minded about this game thanks to our confidence in the studio. But we'll get into this in just a minute. After a mere few hours of people looking through the actress's posts and comments, they find all manner of unhinged and reasonable posts that paint her as a nutty activist, and that is putting it mildly. And so, of course, this naturally just ends up raising more questions about the game itself now, as people worry about if the studio's association with a divisive radical activist will have any negative bearing on the game itself. This has only gone on to cause more divide and toxicity in the discussion regarding the game, and that is pretty much where we're at now. I don't want to get political in this video, I just want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei, but I have something to say first, which is that no, the change into a female protagonist in this game does not make it political or ideological, or in other words, it doesn't make it woke, but you would be either foolish or disingenuous not to understand the implications brought on by its association with a voice actor who is, and overtly so at that. We have seen cancellations on people who shared far less divisive or radical opinions, or even simply jokes. People who weren't even activists to begin with, such as Gina Carano. So don't tell me that this is yet another thing that does not matter and that people are exaggerating on. This is why people have always said that we must keep real-life divisive matters out of these spaces, so that entertainment can be a thing that everyone enjoys, that brings people together rather than apart. I agree that it is her freedom of expression to use her social platform for whatever she wants, but it's also a company's freedom of choice to not associate with divisive figures in order to avoid damages, which Sucker Punch, Sony, or whoever it may be that is associated with this decision obviously failed to do. Let's not forget how Black Myth Wukong got into hot water by perceivably political decisions, such as no Sweet Baby Inc. involvement and no involvement of DEI agendas. They didn't have any divisive activists associated with their game at all. Why is it okay for them to get into trouble with these journalists and whatnot, but this situation with Yotei is supposed to not matter at all? Furthermore, the current climate in the gaming industry, and entertainment as a whole to be honest, but let's just focus on the gaming side of things for now, it's extremely delicate. Whether you want to accept it or not, a large portion of gamers are getting sick and tired of being attacked for liking the things that they like, and that they've always liked for years without having any issues with traipsing over any other fandoms or any other communities, or impeding anyone else from being able to like what they like. In other words, they are getting sick of having their opinions and their space painted over with wild misinterpretations that they never claimed and that are not based in reality. Some people like to say this absolutely stupid claim that the industry is changing, moving forward, and that these gamers are just upset that other people are finding their place within. Everyone has always had a place within. It's discussions like these that make me want to hurry up and start making videos about good examples of diversity done right in the industry that everyone has been able to enjoy. It's a completely made-up notion that denies the fact that a large variety of people of various different backgrounds from all across the world have had a wide variety of games to enjoy. People have always been able to find their place within this industry. You never saw communities of toxic gamers invading spaces belonging to, for example, Life is Strange, Oxenfree, Celeste, Firewatch, Gone Home, etc. when all of these games came out. These ridiculous notions are peddled by fake virtue signaling companies like Sweet Baby Inc. and other similarly minded people in the EI departments that use these very delicate matters as vehicles for profit and for pushing their extreme ideologies. They use these terms of diversity and inclusivity to shield themselves from scrutiny, criticism, financial blunders, and consequences. These companies and departments are symbols of a terrible evil that has gripped these spaces in the gaming, movie, and TV show industries, hindering creative and artistic freedom, diminishing the quality of the products, and tearing down the morale and environment within some of those studios that are more deeply affected by these ideology-pushing departments, to the point where you can't even use exclamation marks in your emails without HR making a fuss about it. It is all around us. It has been all around us for years now, and no matter how much some of you who may or may not watch this video say that it doesn't exist and that it's a conspiracy, it just doesn't matter anymore. As the expression goes, the jig is up. There are various sources from across this industry already. As we speak, we've even got Ubisoft developers spilling the beans about these ideological influences infecting their studios, which ended up in them creating some of the absolute worst games they have ever fucking done to date, which is saying something even for them, not to mention the stuff already freely admitted by Sweet Baby Inc. themselves. It's no secret anymore. The information is out and available to any who want to look for it, and my favorite part about this is actually the fact that even for quote-unquote normies who didn't know about any of this shit until earlier this year, like myself, it is something that we've always noticed and felt throughout these years. We just shrugged it off as isolated things that would sooner or later go away because of it being unsustainable. Little did we know that there was an entire ideology not only trying to sustain it, but also use it to enforce thoughts and behaviors like some fucking Dr. Evil comic book plot. Gaming communities that are demographically dominated by men or sporting franchises with certain quote-unquote masculine values are often under constant scrutiny, if not attack, through activists in creative positions or in consultant companies like Sweet Baby Inc. who inject themselves into those creative positions. Also through actors or developers or even higher-ups who speak out in incredibly biased, inflammatory, or straight-up insulting ways without ever suffering the consequences. Or also, for example, Humberly Gonzalez, the actress for Cave-S, calling the gaming space misogynistic and gatekeepy in regards to who can and can't be in lead positions. And don't you even get me started on the unhinged shit that Sweet Baby Inc. and their supporters constantly say, or even Kim Belair's very own racist comments. And of course, through the games media and their gaming journalists, who shouldn't even have that name anymore given the amount of times that they've been caught fabricating shit and inciting further division between communities of gamers. They demonize us all, even if it's just for our completely apolitical criticisms of a game. Or hell, they even demonize us when we don't criticize a game, like for example being excited for Black Myth Wukong. They blame us for maintaining a toxic space without substantiating any of this nonsense with evidence. Nonsense which anyone can counter by simply thinking about what the gaming space really is. A bunch of different communities, big and small, filled with diverse fans coming together by nothing else but their love of great games. Where the fuck are these gatekeepers at? Game journalists and entertainment/access media outlets in general are the ones sowing toxicity and division among gaming communities to profit off of us and lend credence to these ideological agendas, pushing them as things that need to exist to combat this non-existent bullshit, pushing these terrible fucking games that we don't want to play as things that are good or that ought to be given a chance, while hiding or straight up attacking the things that we actually want and are interested in as paying customers. Whether you agree or not, or whether you accept it or not, nothing changes the fact that people are getting sick of being told that they're wrong for liking or disliking a fucking piece of media, a corporate product made with the intent to be sold and make a profit. Products that are often already attached to franchises that we are invested in. This has set a terrible climate that makes anything at all be scrutinized much more heavily. It makes people question everything that may come across as another instance of another attack on them or their medium, or as another politically driven choice, even when they are not. Until things calm down, this is the way that things are going to go, and stupid statements like the one from Sean Layden from PlayStation telling people that if they don't like it, don't buy it, don't do a single thing to help the situation, just like they didn't help Concord. They didn't help The Acolyte, they didn't help Doctor Who, they didn't help fucking Lords of not lords, fucking rings of power. These types of statements don't help anyone. It doesn't make a skeptic's worries any more assuaded, and it doesn't make the other side any more inclined towards cooling down their baseless anger and vast generalizations that further perpetuate this toxic climate. We have to end this trend of dumbass execs, CEOs, or other corporate or creative types in lead positions thinking that they are better than their audiences. We have to end this ridiculous trend of being so stupid or so disingenuous that we see something like this happening and we make it all a black and white situation. Newsflash, this is such an easily analyzed situation that it makes me wonder how this guy ever fucking made it to the position that he made it to. When you have a positive ratio on the trailer, concerns about Jin Sakai's story being left unfinished, and a politically divisive activist as an actress, all of which is at a surface level that doesn't even require more than a day's worth of research at most, then you have more than enough to know that this isn't just some stupid little shit about sexism and bigotry, where only a tiny minority of nobodies are making noise. There's a lot of people like myself who are cautiously optimistic about this trailer and who are one of the motherfuckers who left a like on it. We are paying very close attention to the discourse and the direction that the game is going, and the result of this direction is what's going to ultimately make us buy the game or skip it. Comments like these make me concerned about this game's quality, not confident. When you say things like that, the far biggest part of what you're doing is not owning the chuds. When you do that, the bigger effect that you're having is sending the message that you don't give a fuck about any criticism or concerns that your former paying customer base has, just like those sinking, unhinged activists at Sweet Baby Inc. and in the gaming news media. We all like to rag on Ubisoft for their utter failures and on Xbox for not having any games, but PlayStation isn't at a good spot either. They've been through embarrassing shit this year already, and that's not to mention the $400 million loss on Concord. And they're not doing so hot when projects like Spider-Man 2 cost so much money to make and advertise that despite selling well, it still barely made a profit. You are not in a position to be smug and dismissive of the people who made your previous games during the PS4 generation successful. Statements like Sean Layden's never help in situations like these, and if he was too clueless or careless to not even look at what the hell is going on before commenting on it, then he should have kept himself quiet and left it to the actual people who are in charge of dealing with this situation instead of muddying the waters. Basically, the situation that they have in their hands is not some boo women situation. It's actually something like this. We're gonna make a little graph here like Asmongold. So, on this side, in the dark blue, you have those fucking men. The ones who hate all the women and want no female protagonists and want the nude mods and, you know, the so-called gatekeepers.
Here's what you do. You get about 100,000 of these fucking men. You know the ones I mean, these macho motherfuckers, the muscle assholes. And you throw them in a big dirt arena, and you just let them beat the shit out of each other for 24 hours non-stop. No food, no water, just whiskey and PCP.
Okay. On a serious note, this side does legitimately exist. Oh, for sure, there's some people like that on the internet, always have been, always will be, but they never mattered or affected the game's reputation or sales because they are legitimately a minority. Their complaints that, for example, Tomb Raider back in 2013 didn't have double D titties didn't make that trilogy any less fun and successful, and their complaints about not wanting to play as a woman in Horizon Zero Dawn didn't make that game any less successful either. Those ones here are the ones that Sean Layden is supposedly owning with that tweet and losing sales from. Pretty much insignificant. You're still better off not doing that kind of thing, but it's whatever. When people are being unreasonable, there's nothing wrong with a little put down. Then, over here in pink, we have the so-called modern audience, right? So the people who need to be personally catered to and represented so that they can feel seen and advocate for inclusion, except for the men. Except for the men and the attractive women who dare to have curves or thicker bodies. Those heteronormative pieces of shit can fuck right off. This is the audience that Sean Layden is trying to appeal to, but it doesn't really matter because most of these people don't really play video games like this. I mean, let's just be real. Gritty action games caked in blood and challenging combat and glory kills is not really the kind of thing that appeals to the majority of the modern audience. Otherwise, there will be no reason for the modern audience to even exist and be catered to differently than how games cater to the majority of us. If the game came out looking like Dragon Age Veilguard, all babied up with cartoony visual styles, colors saturated as fuck, a full pansexual cast of characters, and the promise of thirst-trap content, then maybe they'd be able to get some sales out of them, but otherwise forget it. Now, over here, in this kind of like light pink color, you have some people who Sean Layden also appealed to because it's the perceivably correct thing to do. Because perceivably, to the uninformed person, this actually may just look like a clear-cut black and white case of Wyman supporters versus Wyman haters. So these people will be left very happy and satisfied by the tweet, and they are definite buyers. But this big chunk here, somewhere along the middle and this lighter blue area, is composed of just normal people who are invested in this franchise, who like the trailer, and who may simply have concerns with either the fact that Jin is gone and it's 300 years in the future, so we won't even be able to see him again or know what happened with the Shogun, and of course, it has to be mentioned, people who are also concerned with the decision to associate themselves with a divisive political activist as an actress, possibly meaning that the integrity and dedication of this game to the artistic side that made Ghost of Tsushima amazing might be compromised. Note that I said might, not is. This could also just be a normal situation where an actress is just an actress, completely unrelated to her past tweets, but the situation is being exacerbated by the current climate surrounding the industry. Comments like those of Sean Layden are not good at all for this group of people. It doesn't mean that it will make or break the game, but it does mean that people will be paying close attention to their next moves, and that the excitement for this game has been a bit conditioned by something that they will likely only be able to confirm or deny the existence of at launch. Whenever people look up this actress, they have to run across very divisive and even radical takes like this. Whether it's something that they agree with or not, this is still just not a good look at all for the company and the studio because it is so extreme. I mean, like I said, I don't want to get overly political in this, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist with a PhD to realize how massive of an impact the act of abolishing the police would have in the lives of millions of people. How big of a shift in the dynamics of our society something like this would have. Yet, she just throws it out there like it's nothing, and it just ends up in irresponsibly fueling more divisiveness and radicalism. She also has some funny ones though, like this one here. I can't even wrap my head around this one, man. I mean, this is just so performative. It's the only good faith way that I can explain this. People who look up this actress are gonna be running into her saying that she needed to read a fucking book in order to figure out that black, indigenous people of color belong in the future. If you needed to read a book to figure this out, I hope you never read Mein Kampf. She then says that they can now fight to build that future. Girl, you need to fight yourself in the mirror if you needed a fucking book to acknowledge the existence, humanity, and future of people of color. God damn.
Some people are really fucking stupid.
There's a lot more in there. There's even some mini stories that look like they were written by Jussie Smollett, but I'm leaving it here because, like I said, I'm optimistic that none of this is going to matter and that the game is going to turn out good anyway. So with that out of the way, let's just get to the actual trailer and game. Personally, I'm trying to maintain a positive attitude and outlook on this thing and ignoring the weird shit that I see people digging up from the actress's social media. I can separate art from the artist so long as the art itself is also separated from the artist. I don't have to agree or disagree with something that someone who is making a video game says or believes in, so long as these people are still committed to the quality and integrity of that game. Sweet Baby Inc., for example, isn't bad for whatever political beliefs they may hold. They're bad because they're incapable of keeping those political beliefs outside of their games. They want the games industry to burn to the ground out of sheer hatred for the people that they do not condone and that they cannot control. But this really does serve as an example of why associating the face of your product with a divisive political figure is a bad thing when dealing with products that have such an insanely large audience. An audience that has next to no interest in political activism and who are solely interested in their game being good. Sweet Baby Inc. and others similarly minded as them could actually potentially do pretty well in smaller circles if they kept themselves under control. But in bigger circles, dealing with far bigger audiences with wider appeals, they are unsustainable, and they could never really live with themselves in smaller circles anyway, because narcissistic activists are not interested in small fry. But as I said, the trailer itself looked great, and it was completely barren of anything concerning. Sucker Punch has always been a quality studio, and I have faith in them to succeed in bringing this game together the right way. Ghost of Tsushima is one of my favorite games. I know that from the surface it may not look like much. Some people even used to call it a Ubisoft game at the time because of how you've got this open world, you've got the combat, you've got the stealth, you've got some outposts, some enemy camps. But the quality put into each and every single part of this game was far beyond anything that Ubisoft could actually achieve. What I liked the most about this game was the story though. I love the character of Jin Sakai and the personal struggle that he went through in abandoning his teachings and his samurai code of honor in pure desperation to be able to save his uncle and then the whole island of Tsushima for the sake of his people. Jin's humility was my favorite part about him. I love my fair share of characters with headstrong, charismatic attitudes as well, but it was a very fitting and enjoyable thing to have this incredibly talented and skilled man to be a constant figure of maturity, humility, and integrity. It felt good to see a deserving character gain his confidence back and even earn himself the title of Ghost, a title of extremely high regard and responsibility without losing his sense of self. It was even a title that he did not want for himself. His clashes with his uncle in questions of honor were incredibly well acted, as were the moments with the Khan. All of these actors across the board delivered brilliant, intense performances, and even the smaller moments with characters like Norio, Yuna, Taka were done with so much gusto. This whole thing just had such a high production value and a notable passion for the craft. No one was phoning anything in, no one was just reading their lines. It made for a great story that I love returning to every now and then. And of course there's the island as well, so much detail, so much attention to everything that they even got called ambassadors of Tsushima by the Tsushima island itself, which is a complete contrast to what happened with Ubisoft without their game even coming out first. This, and the fact that Jin's story was teased to continue in very exciting ways as he was actually in hiding because of the Shogun stripping him of his title and declaring him a fugitive, made me obviously disappointed that we weren't going to get that story anymore. But this wasn't even right away, because when I first saw that it was a woman, I initially thought that maybe we were going to be playing as Yuna, so I was actually still on board because she's obviously connected to Jin and has her own story set up, and she was already established as a very skilled fighter and a thief with nothing to lose. My excitement only wilted when I was told that this was 300 years in the future, so all hopes of seeing Jin's story was gone. The reason for this is not because of any problems with female protagonists. I'll play anything and get into anything as long as it's good. I don't suffer from that brain disease that some people suffer where they're only able to enjoy a game if they are personally represented on the screen. Similarly, at the end of Horizon Zero Dawn, a sequel is teased through the end credits scene that implies a character stole something important and left. So if in Forbidden West we were presented with a new character called Humongous, he could even be a cis-hetero white male, as some people like to say that all that we gamers want is those, apparently, logic and sense be damned, and it was set 300 years in the future, I would have been disappointed too. I would have been excited that a new Horizon game is coming, but disappointed that a compelling character and a compelling story are now left unfinished. But oh well. As far as positives go in regards to this new Ghost of Yotei, I am curious about how they will handle her character. Obviously Jin had his own unique characteristic of being a samurai, raised by the Jito of Tsushima himself. A lot of the first game's dynamics were affected by that characteristic. He had to struggle with the dishonorable nature of his work and what that meant to him. He was always very heavily impacted by this, and one of the coolest little details was, for example, how, depending on the level of upgrade of your tanto, the knife that Jin used to assassinate his enemies with, he had different animations that also demonstrated his progress. At first he is very clumsy and his kills aren't even silent. It takes longer to kill enemies and nearby guards can hear it. In the second upgrade level, Jin is a little bit faster and more adept in his moves, but still needs more than one strike, and enemies that are close to the victim can hear it. And then finally, at upgrade level 3, Jin is like a professional. He takes out his enemies with one single silent strike. So yeah, I'm very curious as to which type of character this new protagonist is going to be and exactly what type of special characteristics she's going to have that sets her apart from Jin. Any different kind of scenery is going to be a breath of fresh air. One thing I am definitely excited about though is the new mechanics we'll be seeing. The whole gameplay in general, honestly, I can't wait to engage with this combat system again, but with new weapons. The first game's combat system was so damn nice and fluid. It only gave us the opportunity to use a sword, but we could switch between 4 diverse stances that had strengths and weaknesses depending on the enemy type that we were facing. I'm hoping that the movement has been kept free and loose, but more refined in the animation department. Some of the new weapons got teased in the trailer, such as an Odachi, which I think it's a big fucking sword, a Kusarigama. There's also a rifle, which I believe came from the West, so I don't know if maybe we'll be seeing some more Western influences in this game. And of course, dual-wielding katanas. That's going to be awesome. I am wondering and hoping that the stance system is still going to be applied to each one of these weapons, because the more variety the better. But it may not happen. It may just end up being like different weapons for different enemy types. I'd also like to see this character lean much more into the ghost side of things, so like more of a shinobi type of character with those kinds of tools and weapons more fit for stealth, subterfuge, and quicker kills. Jin Sakai had this ability, this special ability, which was the ghost stance, in which he would enter it and be able to take out any enemy with one shot. Now I have no idea what kind of special ability this new ghost is going to have, but one thing that always comes to mind to me in these kinds of games is this ability from back when Assassin's Creed used to be good, so like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood for example, where Ezio would basically kill a few enemies, and then after killing a few enemies he would enter this trance and he would be able to take out scores of enemies with just pretty much one shot, but all of it very well animated. Like it wasn't just swinging your weapon and killing them, it was basically kill animation after kill animation after kill animation. Future Assassin's Creed games tried to do this as well, like for example Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but I didn't like it as much. It felt too cheap and easy. For Ezio in Brotherhood you had to at least string a few executions first before being able to do that. I've just basically been dying to see that kind of mechanic again in another action game of this style, and I felt like it would really fit Atsu well because of her being a character of a smaller stature. Basically it would benefit her from tactically striking her enemies down as fast as possible rather than getting into drawn out strenuous duels with them. But then again, someone might think that this is a sexist thing to say, so I don't know. One way or another though, sexist or not, one thing is for sure, imagining the possibilities is definitely pretty cool, because I mean it's like, just like I said, when you're expecting a new Ubisoft game or whatever, there's really not much to be fucking expectant of, but when you're expecting a game from Sucker Punch, you actually do have a reason to have your expectations and whatnot, because they are a pretty goddamn solid studio. A studio that likes to value narrative, but that also puts a lot of emphasis on style and gameplay. And that's pretty much it. That's basically where I'm sitting right now. I'd see no problems in the trailer. I think it looks gorgeous and I'm waiting to learn more. So long as the studio stays clear from this controversy and the game itself was still made with the same integrity and respect, not just to its own gamers, but to the Japanese people and culture as well, then I think that we'll be in for a treat regardless of what the actress posts on her social media. I still think that Sean Layden needs to go enjoy his retirement in a boat without internet access though. Here's hoping that Sucker Punch strikes lightning once more with an exciting story, compelling characters and some fun gameplay, and of course if anything changes I'll be here paying attention as well. Anyway, that's it from me on the Ghost of Yotei. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. Let's reminisce a little bit about the good shit that was Ghost of Tsushima, if you played it. If not, well, if you have a PS5 or a PC, you should definitely go have a look at it. Leave me a like if you enjoyed the video and maybe subscribe for more. I'll see you on the next one.